Are you ready to take your organization to the next level and become a game changer in your industry? Then look no further. Welcome to Yokai Business Show, where we bring you the world's top business thought leaders to share their secrets to success, from leadership development to finance, marketing, self-development, human resource management, and much, much more. Our guests reveal the strategies, tactics, and mindsets that have made them so successful. So let's dive in and learn from the best in the business. Hello and welcome back to another great episode. Today with me is an outstanding gentleman who is helping people with what they truly need to succeed. Did you know that before you succeed, you've got to master communication? There's a lot of great people out there with great skill, but they're not getting what they truly deserve in life because they don't know how to communicate their ideas in a way that makes people want to do business with them. Well, if you have ever asked your question, how can I communicate in an effective way? How can I do public speaking? How can I connect with people that I can do business with in an exceptional way? You are in the right place today because my next guest, David, has been doing this for over 25 years, helping people like you and I really hone in on public speaking, communicating well, and you're in for a treat. David, thank you so much for joining me here on the show.
Well, thank you, sir. This is such a pleasure and such a treat for me to be here. I have been following your podcast for quite some time, and now to be a guest, I'm so happy. Thank you.
It's amazing. You know, yesterday you were busy facilitating a program there, and I know how busy you are, and you're taking time to be generous with your knowledge. I'm truly, truly excited to have you on the show. And with me is my dear friend, Kylie, and many of you know Kylie from our book, 8 Qualities for Great Leadership. Kylie is joining us here for the first time to facilitate our conversation, and many of you will be able to see and hear from Kylie over the next few weeks or months to come, as Kylie will be participating as a visiting guest. Kylie, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Yokai. Great to be here and lovely to meet you, David, as well.
Same here. Hello, Kylie.
Incredible. Let's go in. David is a dynamic professional speaker, trainer, coach with over 25 years of experience in the field of training and development, leadership and communication, with a passion for helping individuals and organizations achieve their full potential. David brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to his presentations. Now, if you want to create an engaging and a unique experience with your audience, you want to listen to David because he's been doing this for so long. In fact, he's a sought-after speaker at industry conference, corporate events, and educational institutes across the United States. In fact, David is known for simplifying complex concepts and deliver actionable insights that empowers individuals like you and I to communicate in an exceptional way. David, once again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Yokai.
I know you've got an interesting statistic that you shared with me earlier on, David, that made me think, I need to know more about this. Would you share with our audience here today?
Well, it's definitely interesting, and it could be a little frightening at times as well. And 93% of our message to our audience, no matter what size audience it is, comes from our nonverbals. Now, there's many things that fall into that nonverbal bucket, such as body language, eye contact, even it's not the words themselves, but how you use those words fall into that nonverbal bucket. The PowerPoint that you're using, the handouts. So there's lots of things that fall into that nonverbal bucket. So any presenter, even before the first word is out of their mouth, the audience is already making judgments of them.
You know, I wish I had known this earlier on in my career. Well, you live to learn, don't you? Because I can imagine the amount of missed opportunities I have had over the years simply because I had not taken time to polish up on my public speaking, on my communication. I'm still working on this. In your experience, how much is lost by business owners by not being ready when it comes to communication and public speaking?
Well, I would imagine that business owners have the opportunity to lose a lot or miss out on a lot of opportunities. Number one, from not getting up in front of people and speaking. I've been a part of a number of networking groups here in the Atlanta area for a number of years, and I can tell you a good couple of fistfuls of business owners that say, I will never get up and speak in front of the networking group because I'm too scared to death. Well, the thing that they lose out on, the whole purpose of a networking group is for us to learn enough about each other so that when I'm at another networking group and somebody says a couple of magic words that says, hey, you know something? I know a guy that does that. But because this business owner never gets up in front of the audience and tells us enough about what they do, or they don't do it in a way that we can understand what it is they do, they're losing out on a whole room full of potential salespeople.
Yes. What a missed opportunity. You've got interesting examples or case studies of people you've worked with that have gone on to do great things. You're telling me about this gentleman who is now the president. Share with everybody that case study. I think Bill and everybody in the audience would resonate with that.
Well, thanks, especially Bill. Well, hello to Bill in the audience. And yeah, I was working with a gentleman. I started working with him about a couple of months ago. And he has recently been promoted from being a vice president of one of this large company's divisions. And he was moved into a new role as a president of another one of their divisions. He found me through a Google search and said to me, I'm scared to death about presenting in public. I have presented a number of times. People say that I do a good job, but inside of me, I am feeling all of this anxiety.
Yeah.
Can you help me? So we spent 2 months working together on a large presentation that he just made just the other day. And we worked on refining that presentation, but a lot of the time was spent on working on his stage presence, but more so working on his self-talk. The self-talk can be the most damaging when it comes to public speaking. You may have the best speech, the best PowerPoint, you look the best on stage, but if your self-talk is not correct, that's going to sabotage your whole presentation. So we worked for 2 months on the self-talk. He gave that presentation the other day. I have seen videos of it. It is unbelievable. But what's most important is that he now has much more self-confidence for the next time that he has to make a presentation.
You know, David, I'm curious, about, the self-talk. You've done this for a long time. For somebody who's listening and they want to become great at what they do, especially about public speaking, do you have maybe 2 or 3 self-talk that they can start cultivating now to build them up for that moment?
That's a great question. I think it all comes down to first understanding that your audience wants you to be successful. In just about every speaking situation, number one, your audience wants you to be successful, but there's usually only one person in that entire room that feels that the speech will not go well. Can you imagine who that one person is?
It'll be you.
Exactly. So understand, number one, that your audience wants you to be successful. Number two, being nervous is normal. So if you are nervous before a presentation, nervous before getting up to speak in front of whatever group you're going to speak to, guess what? You are normal. And the thing that folks need to work on, and what speakers have worked on, is those foundational skills. Like a house. If you have a house that is sitting on top of a fractured foundation, or a foundation that is not strong or is falling apart, guess what? The house is going to fall down, is going to collapse. It's the same thing that I feel that speakers have to have, presenters, trainers, facilitators, folks that are running a meeting. They have to have strong foundational speaking, presenting skills. Without those strong foundational skills, everything's going to fall down.
I would love to talk about the foundational skills, but before we do that, I would like to take you back to that gentleman. You went through the whole mindset or, the self-talk, and you redefined his presentation. What sort of results did you get for him? The before and the after results of working with you?
That's a great question, because I think what happens in many cases with presenters, that they are relying 100% on their own intuition, that they get up and they make a presentation, and automatically at the end of it, they're already saying to themselves, I did a horrible job. It was no good. And they're basing that 100% on their own perception of themselves. I can tell you from my experience that we make our own worst critic. And I have been training this stuff for years. I have gotten people up very quickly to make a presentation at the beginning of a workshop. And as soon as they finish talking about whatever, I'll ask them, how did you feel? Many times they'll talk about all the negatives. I'll ask the audience, did you see any of that? 9.9 times out of 10, the audience didn't see any of it. So if you're relying 100% on your own intuition, that's not good. So I think what really helped him was me giving him good feedback, valid feedback. He was also able, I recorded him, I videotaped every one of our sessions. So he was also able to see himself. So he's getting a very different perspective for the very first time on his own presentation skills, and not relying on what he thought or how he thought he was coming across.
Incredible. I remember when I had a coach to teach me this stuff, she helped me really. She said, remember when you step up to give a presentation, nobody knows what you're going to say. So if you end up missing certain part, people won't know that you missed that part. It will be only you who know that, oh, that part, I should have said it this way, or should have said it that way. And she said, think of it this way. You are going into an audience and you've done so much study already. So you are, 10 miles ahead of everybody, and people are playing catch up. So just go there, be presentable, communicate, put the energy that you want to help people, and enjoy the process. And when you do that, you're going to help people. And that has helped me. And when I say use it to this very day, even during the podcast that we are doing, because it can be nerve-wracking.
Sure. And then when we end up getting too much into our own heads, then if we make a mistake or we miss something, like you said, we're the only ones that know that we missed it. We're the only ones that know that we made that mistake. And if we're so much in our heads and we let that fluster us, nobody else would know.
Amazing. Well, Bill, if you are still enjoying our conversation here, please stay right till the end. Maybe if you want to just jump out, remember to come back and click the link below this conversation for you to find out more information and where you can join David, or even discover more about what we are talking about here today. David, let's talk about the functional skills that business owners need to develop if they're going to be successful with their desire to communicate well.
That's another great question. There are a number of things that fall into this bucket, I would feel, that the functional skills, but we'll just kind of scratch the surface of some of them. I think one of them that's most important is that sometimes, being a subject matter expert, you sometimes can sabotage yourself because you know so much information about your product or your service or whatever it happens to be, that it's not uncommon for that subject matter expert to bombard or vomit information to their audience. So I think number one, for a business owner to be successful, is first understanding that, yes, you are an expert, but understanding who is your audience and
right.
what is the current knowledge level of your audience, and being aware of not overwhelming them, and also being aware that every person in your audience, whether you're talking to 1,000 people, whether you're talking to a handful of people, or to one person, every time, every one of those people are going to be different, and their listening is going to be different. So you have to adapt to that.
Incredible. You know, this became poignant to me when I was training people on how to start, scale, and monetize your podcast. You know, I was delivering this stuff. You know, I've been doing podcasts now for a long time. So during the pandemic, we started the coaching program, helping people to do the same thing. And I would give everything, you know, to people. And then people would say, oh, we are overloaded. And then I thought, okay, let's take this slowly. So I totally understand exactly where you are coming from. And sometimes less is more rather than to offload people. What would be the second functional skill, or something that people have to be mindful when they're going into public speaking?
So number one would be knowing your audience. Number two would be to incorporate stories. Yes. We love, as adults, we love to hear stories. And because we like to be able to visualize that story, see it, feel it, taste it, smell it within our heads. And we also like to be emotionally connected. The more your audience can see it, can emotionally connect to that story, you're bringing that audience into that discussion with you. You're getting them to emotionally connect to that story. So I would say that incorporating stories, getting your audience to emotionally connect would be the second. Yeah.
It's fascinating, really, you know, about emotional connectedness that we get when a speaker is talking about something. Maybe it's personal, maybe it's about their cat at home. It's like if all of a sudden you're awake, you want to hear what happened next.
Exactly. And you visualize that cat. I have a cat here, so I'm a cat lover already. So now you've got my attention because you're talking about cats. And you know what's also important with those stories, that they have to be relevant to your audience. That's why I have seen, I'm not a sales coach, but I've learned enough that many times you go to a showroom of some sort, if you're wearing a shirt that maybe has some sort of a design on it from maybe a place that you vacationed in the past, and then the salesperson starts talking about that. Now that's relevant to you. You're wearing the t-shirt. You've been to this place. So right there, that's one way of captivating your audience's attention.
You know, I'm going to confess here. When I started with all this, I didn't know how to incorporate stories. In fact, I was just, you know, let's go straight to the point. This is point 1, point 2, point 3. And it took me a while to get to a point of start incorporating story. So if somebody's listening here, David, who doesn't know how to do that, do you have a strategy or a particular way of incorporating stories in their presentation that you would like to share with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to telling stories about clients, let's use that for example, that story should be made up of 3 pieces. First would be, what was the problem that your client was facing? Number 2 would be, what solution did you provide that client? And number 3, what was the outcome? So what problem, solution, outcome, PSO. Yeah. And along with that, the other caveat to this is it needs to be cut short. You don't have to go into a lot of information. There doesn't need to be a lot of data. You know, last week I was working with my new client, Kylie. Kylie and I have known each other for 3 years. I've known Kylie's husband for 6 years, and Kylie's husband does this, and we've done this. We've been on the boat together. We don't need to know all of that information. All we need to know is that last week, Kylie had this problem. I provided this solution, and because she applied this solution, she's now has this outcome. And Kylie, I don't know if you have a husband or not, but I just kind of use that as an example.
I do. And yeah, he would love you to solve some of his problems, no doubt.
I'm not a psychiatrist.
What I love about that, the simplicity, is people will begin to see themselves in your story. Like, oh, they had this problem. Is that problem sounds like the problem I have? And they apply
Exactly.
this solution. Oh, if that solution sounds logical, if I apply that same solution, I might also get this outcome. So really simple, yet straight to the point. And if it is relatable, people are going to buy into what you're saying. I find that to be very effective.
And along with that, maybe I'm not having that problem, but I know somebody else that's having that problem. So now I'm now a referral partner for that individual.
Absolutely incredible. Let's dive deep in talking more about the functional skills. We've covered the first one, know your audience. And now we covered about the story. Is there anything else, maybe one more that people ought to bear in mind?
One more would be a compelling conclusion.
Right.
As adults, as humans, we remember impactful firsts, which would be the opening of your presentation, and we remember impactful lasts, which in this case would be the closure. And I can't tell you how many times I have observed speakers who just forget all about the conclusion. And in that conclusion, it could be something as simple as wrapping it up. Like today, we talked about three things. We talked about knowing your audience. We talked about why it's important to incorporate stories. And finally, we looked at how to have a compelling conclusion. Part of your compelling conclusion can also include a call to action of some sort, a giveaway of some sort, and maybe even another compelling statistic, something that's going to get people to remember who you are. Because again, we will remember impactful lasts.
Absolutely. Love that. Well, if you are listening and you want to know those key points that we talked about, they will also be listed in the worksheet that will be below this audio. And I think, what we are covering here could help you as a business owner get started. Of course, I'm not under an illusion that this is all there is to do. There will be other areas. That's why we encourage you to go and check out what David has to say in his other programs there. But this will get you started. Now, let's switch gears for a moment here, David. Some people struggle with voice projection. You get on stage there, you don't know how to modulate your voice. Are you very loud, very soft spoken? Is this something that you've had to deal with? And how can people deal with it if they end up having such an issue?
Yeah, I definitely witnessed a lot of that yesterday in the workshop that I conducted, where there were some people that would get up in front of the room and we didn't have a microphone, so it luckily there weren't a lot of people in there, and I had to tell a number of them to speak up. So a lot of times we don't realize how loud or how soft we are coming across to our audience, because going from our mouth to our ears is not a huge distance, but now from your mouth to a couple of rows back in seats, it's quite a distance. So yes, certainly. This falls into one of those nonverbals, the voice projection, the ability for people to hear you. Because if you're in front of the room and your audience cannot hear you, that is going to contribute to the lack of credibility of that individual. So for me personally, somehow I was blessed with being able to easily breathe from my diaphragm and project my voice. Ever since I was a kid, people were commenting about my voice. I can't tell you, if I had a nickel for every time I was around little kids, around my nieces and nephews and so on, I'd be a rich man, because I don't realize how loud I am. And it really has paid off in my public speaking, my acting career when I was in theater for a number of years. So it certainly helped. So I think there was more to that question, but that was some of it of that, the voice projection, that to be a good proficient speaker, you've got to have that voice projection, you've got to be breathing properly from your diaphragm, and you have to have that vocal variety, because it all adds to credibility.
That's right. My mentor once said, when you get up there, speak a little bit louder, 25% louder than you normally speak, and also speak another 25% faster than you normally speak to get people's attention. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, here's my take on it. Number one, you don't want to be yelling at your audience. So I would certainly say that you should be projecting your voice. You should have a conversational style when you're addressing your audience, but then not yelling at your audience or try to yell to the back of the room. The other is about the pace. You want to have a normal conversational pace, but you do want to fluctuate in your pacing depending on what it is you're talking about at the time. Many people, when they're nervous, will have a tendency of speaking much faster, which is dangerous because the faster you speak, people are going to, they listen at all different speeds.
That's right.
And many of them are going to lose half of what you said, if not 3/4 of what you say. So I would say that your voice, yes, it needs to be more boisterous, not yelling, and your pace needs to be a conversational pace, but it should fluctuate based on what it is you're talking about, and watch that initial nervousness, that nervous pace at the beginning.
Yes, incredible. Absolutely incredible. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know how to do these things, you just go straight to the website and log our conversation here and find out more. I highly encourage you to have a voice coach, or somebody who is going to help you with your communication. They can give you one-to-one feedback as to how you are doing. Like I gave, on my mentor was saying that it was specifically for me. Maybe because, he had observed that I was speaking slower and said, this is what you need to do. So I want to encourage you, Bill, and everybody else here, just get somebody to listen to you and let them give you a proper feedback. David will be great, and many other speakers we've had on the show will be able to help you with that as well. As we come toward the end of our time here, David, I want to maybe focus on, how do you craft a presentation that keeps people engaged?
That's an excellent question. Well, number one, you look for a coach. Hello, and but as far as crafting the speech, and you start with the conclusion first. My background comes from 30 years of developing training, and there's no way that you can develop good training or training at all without first understanding what are the objectives. What are we trying to solve? What problems are we fixing? And once we understand the objectives, how are we going to measure that we've actually accomplished those objectives? It's the same thing to me. It's the same thing when writing a presentation. You've got to start with the end in mind first. Imagine that you're standing in front of your audience, and now you're giving your conclusion, and you're letting your audience know that today we looked at 3 things. Knowing your audience, incorporating stories, and a compelling conclusion. Those now are my 3 objectives. This now becomes my opening. Today, we're going to learn XXX. And now I start filling in the blanks. These are my bullet statements: audience, stories, conclusion. And now you start putting in your sub bullets underneath that. And that's how you start building that presentation. So number one, there's lots of ways of engaging an audience. Number one is you need to have a presentation that has good structure, first of all, because if not, it's going to fall apart. Then there are pieces that you need to put within that presentation to add additional engagement to it. But it starts with that initial structure. It's like building a bridge. You think about Legos.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of Legos, they're all different colors. And the first thing we need to build is we need to build our conclusion, which is the other side of the bridge. So we've taken all of these different multicolored Legos, and we've now built the other side of the bridge. This side of the bridge is our opening. Because we have our conclusion, we now have our opening. We know what we're going to talk about. So we build this side of the bridge with a bunch of multicolored Legos. However, the middle of the bridge is open. There's nothing here. So now you have to start putting all of those different Legos in place to start building that presentation. So now you get over to the other side of the bridge, and now you've got a beautifully multicolored bridge.
I can tell you've done this several times, the way you were explaining it.
I hope you saw the bridge when I was explaining
Yes. I was like, okay, that's where I'm going to put it together. Beautifully put together. Now, there's this thing, you're going to help me here. There are times when I make a mistake or I miss out on something that I wanted to include in a speech. Maybe I've passed that visual aid, and then I should have put that in there. I should have mentioned that. How do you help me? How can you help me when I'm in that sort of mindset? Because sometimes it's like, where do I go from there? Help our audience on this.
Sure. So if I understood correctly, you're going through your presentation, you're going through your speech, you get to a certain part, and then you realize, oops, I missed something.
That's
correct?
Right. Yes.
Number one, we're human. It's going to happen. So to acknowledge it, don't let it fluster you. I learned this when I was in radio broadcasting, that I met a gentleman at one of the live broadcasts, and he says, that mistake that you made a week or so ago when I was listening to you, I loved it. It showed that you were human and you're not a machine. So number one was to admit, I made a mistake. Hold on. We need to go back. However, what I would emphasize here is maybe having a quick review. Okay, I missed this one piece, but first let's review where we're at right now. Let's go back and let's talk about that and talk again. How does this fit into what we're doing? And now that we've talked about this missed piece, let me get us back on track. And let me talk again about where we are so I can kind of reset the stage again versus just stopping, going back, throwing this in like, what the heck's he talking about? How did this end up in here? I thought we should have talked about that before. And now we're ended up back where we were before. And now I'm lost. So you got to keep your audience with you.
Yes, I love that. Beautifully put. Let's finish off by giving everybody some additional resources for improving their public speaking. Do you have any website or any material or resources that people can tap into?
Well, one would be contacting me through my website. I've got 2 free gifts for you if you let me know that you heard this podcast. Number one, I will share with you an ebook that I wrote on the principles of engagement. And I will also have a complimentary 45-minute coaching session to talk about anything and everything about public speaking. And I also want to say that sometimes there's a misperception about public speaking, that the only time you need a public speaking coach or a speaking coach is if you're speaking in front of a large audience. That's not true. Right here, you and I are talking, using public speaking skills.
That's right.
Mentoring one person. So let's get that out of our minds, that only people who speak in front of large audiences would need a public speaking coach. So get in touch with me through my website, presentyourwaytosuccess.com. 2 free gifts, that free ebook on the principles of engagement, 45-minute coaching session. And let me also give a plug to Toastmasters. I have been a part of Toastmasters for almost 30 years now, and it's one of the best, safest places to practice in a safe environment the mechanics of speaking in front of others.
Yes, incredible. And we will have that website below this recording. If you miss those words, just click the link below to be taken to David's website for you to do that. You remember what we always say, never leave a place of discovering something important, something that resonated with you without scheduling a plan of when you're going to be implementing that. And I'm assuming you, like me, have found maybe 2 or 3 things that you're going to work on. And I want to encourage you to share with others what you've learned today and what you're going to be implementing in your business moving forward. David, this has been wonderful, my friend. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I've had a great time today.
One last question before I let you go. From a business owner to another business owner, things are a little bit tough at the minute. Inflation is very high. Things are not working so well for business owners. There's so many challenges. What are you doing differently to keep getting clients, staying afloat, and keeping yourself moving forward? Would you share what's working in your world right now?
Well, in my world, that's a great question. In my world, what's working for me is I'm giving it away in hopes of getting something in return. In some networking groups that I'm a part of, I have been giving away free coaching sessions in trade for recommendations on LinkedIn. So this way, not only do people get value out of that coaching session, they also now have an understanding of how I work. And if they're around the right people and they hear the right words, they'll refer me. And I'm also working with a lot of veterans and veterans groups, because me being a veteran myself, I am always open to helping other veterans in their job seeking skills, interviewing skills, and speaking skills.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for that. Kylie, final questions for David. Anything from you?
One question. I think I don't just speak for myself here, David, but probably millions of other people who are utterly terrified of public speaking. Where do you think the fear comes from when it comes to speaking publicly? What do you think makes it so terrifying for people?
That's a great question. Where I think that it comes from is that fear of the unknown, of being, you're not in a situation, for the most part, where you're not in control. Now, certainly the more experienced you are, the more in control you will be on that stage. But someone who is a novice or learning the craft of speaking in public certainly could have the perception that they are not in control, that the audience could react a certain way that's going to take this into left field somewhere, or the audience is going to ask me a question, and if I don't know the answer to it, that's going to take us in this other crazy direction. So I would say that part of it is going to be losing control.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can understand that because I've felt that many, many times. Even jumping on this podcast today, when I saw the level of experience David had, I became so nervous, and David had to calm me down and say, you know what, you're going to be absolutely fine. So this happens to everybody. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to know more about how you can present your way to success, you know where to go. You just go to this website, www.presentyourwaytosuccess.com. There you'll find incredible information that David shared with you, and we want you to succeed. Listen, if you don't work hard on yourself, you're going to be working hard for other people and on other areas which don't bring the result that you truly want. Would it now be the right time for you to start working on your public speaking, your communication ability, and making your points across in a nice, effective way, in a healthy way, and that leaves everybody wanting to do business with you? If you want to do that, I encourage you to click the link below, reach out to David, reach out to us, and we'll be delighted to help you get closer to your desired goal. As we always say, never leave a place of discovering principles without scheduling when you're going to implement that. And I hope you have scheduled your discoveries today. And lastly, if you haven't registered yourself on the directory, remember we put together recently Yokai directory, where coaches and consultants are now gathering together. We want to encourage you to go register yourself there if you're a coach or if you're a consultant, or if you want to find the best coaches and consultants, go to that same website there, and you'll be able to find the great people. Many of those people who will be on there are the people that are coming from the podcast. So we want you to know where to find them. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to live well, to live with passion. Know that the best is truly, truly yet to come. Again, David, it's incredible to have you on the show. And Kylie, thank you for being here as well. Goodbye for now. Thank you for tuning in to Yokai Business Show. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode and have gained valuable insight and inspiration from our amazing guest. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review to help us spread the word. Also, be sure to check out our Leadership Ultimate Success Mastermind program, which is designed to help you and leaders in our community to do great things and support each other along their leadership journey. Until next time, live well, live with passion, know that the best is truly yet to come.